sure what was heard and what wasn't heard. What I looked at, it looked like most of the message got through. Not sure how much was missed. Maybe a lot, maybe not. However, as I'm saying things, God is hearing it. So whether you hear it or not, God will react to it. So I'm not sure if this made it through, but the government of the United States is harming disabled people today with intention. I spoke to a couple of disabled people today, and they're having issue. One I spoke to on the phone. And I know for a fact, if I speak to you on the phone, they're minding your matter at a minimum. Well, I spoke for a while, and then I looked down, and the record button was, or broadcast button was blue, which means it wasn't broadcasting. So I hope I heal this. And I tried to get my treatment in Tyler, and it just, nothing would work. Everything was confused. Now, if I had the mind I had here in Tyler, I could have gotten to all the things to try them out much earlier. Because what I should have essentially done, made appointments with 10 doctors and just kept going to one after another until they gave me that shot in my back. But the point being that I was displaced from every place I lived because of them. I had no housing rights in reality. The government is not bound by the judicial branch approving harm for it to be executed. A search warrant is a harm to a citizen unless there's a valid reason. So, and it's still a harm. I mean, not every time something is searched and privacy disrupted does a case come to fruition or even any evidence found. So the government was built to be restricted. Now the government was modified and rebuilt with poor intention to restrict the citizen and empower the government. There's criminals everywhere in government, and these criminals are beyond the average criminal. They're psychotic. They're masterminds of crime, of murder, of torture. All they got to do is say that one goes, and then they do it. They'll find a reason. They'll make something look like something. They don't care. And they say, well, we're Christians, but we have a badge and a gun. Now, I'm pro-law enforcement. I'm pro-government. But it has to be government, and it has to be law enforcement for it to be it. There's some very serious issues on both sides. So I'm supposed to get an appointment this week with somebody, and I can't fathom them doing anything other than those steroid shots in my back. You know, you'd think I was going in and asking for some, you know, tightly controlled substance. I mean, I guarantee the way the government's wired this thing, if I'd have walked in and asked for opiates, I'd have got them. Strong opiates. Here. They're minding matter. It exists. It is the basis for all spiritual thought and spiritual instruction that such things occur. Again, we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but what do you point to every time? Flesh and blood. Every time. Every argument I've ever heard a political Christian make is flesh and blood argument. Now again, it's both parties, it's all parties, it's not simply one or the other. That's the illusion, the devil's in the details. Now, of course, this is true, but they would throw it away. Am I therefore become your enemy because I tell you the truth? Galatians 4:16, King James Version. Am I therefore become your enemy because I tell you the truth? Oh, this cool air here in Amarillo in the morning feels so good. Well, I don't know. I don't know how far I'm going to heal. I might be on medication for the rest of my life thanks to the government again. The government is that evil, man. Y'all need to wake up that that's your problem. Now, am I telling you to go riot in the streets? No. God is telling you to do it. Do they work for God? No, of course not. When you do what you do to me, it has repercussions. It's just the way it is. Can you get me to utter some spells? Oh, sure you could. Because you're spelling me to do it. And psychologically operating. My injuries are due to psychological operation of government troops, quite frankly. These are combat methods. Anybody using those methods against a U.S. citizen is using combat methods. But they'll say, well, we got to save people. We got to save people. But what they're really doing is they're causing people to fall into the things that they need to save people from. It's a very simple equation, if they wouldn't be allowed to do the things that they do. How you doing? So it is what it is. And it isn't what it isn't. Healing somebody right now. She, I don't know if she lives here part-time or full-time, but she's disabled, that's for sure. And she collects things. And I know there was a guy in Santa Fe that used to go out and collect things and bring them into his apartment. She even told me, I'm out collecting things. But I'll tell you what, it's a possession. We can have all the science we want speaking about what it is that people are experiencing physically and medically. The initiation of it is spiritual. And again, is God harming individual people? I would say most likely not. Are individual people harming themselves? I would say most likely not. What would I say? That there are devils, demons, antichrists, witches, and sorcerers causing it all. Those that go against the will of God and will that into other people's lives. I have a friend, and I try to get her to understand that the people that she's seeing as being culpable for their sin, and not all of them, but a good portion of them, are the spiritually blind. She believes that they like to do this, that, the other thing. And I said, to myself, there is scripture, that when somebody is healed, they enter in to that place where the demons dwell, and 7 demons worse or 7 times worse, or 777 than before possess them. Now, I will tell you, Jesus said, greater work shall you do. There is a progression of spiritual information in the Bible that doesn't stop with Rabbi Jesus, but is explained by Rabbi Jesus. And in fact, Rabbi Jesus Emmanuel Christ, Ben David, son of David, Ben Elohim, son of God, will actually tell you that there is going to be things that happen after his departure that he's going to consider and does consider greater. Because he's going to go back to the Father, direct link, and empower you. With whatever power God directly applies. It's a combination. Again, everybody has an intrinsic status and power level, but when you get on the government platform, that gets multiplied by the government platform power. So one of the first things they try to do is, if you're in government, is to knock you out of the government, because then that protection will be taken away. But then again, if you have 50 people with government platform power executing you, then your government platform power probably can't protect you. I simply wanted to become an evangelist, and they said no. Government said no. That's how they do it. They CIA operate you till you're gone. You, the community around you, and everything. It would have been a process, but at least I was starting it. They should have let it unfold. Even just sitting on a watch list watching someone, they're devils, man. They're demons, they're antichrists, they're witches and sorcerers. My friend says, don't speak about that. Well, somebody's got to speak about it. The Bible even instructs us to speak about it when we see it. We have to speak about what we see when we watch. I'm trying to bounce my back off of something. Let's see if I can get it to release a little bit more. I'm not sure if that epidural did much, or as much as my magnesium oil did, to release this. So I'm not sure if it even was at the level of treatment that I received in Naples when I did receive an epidural. Because I don't think it was the same type of epidural. So again, the Bible is being used by people who use it for selfish reasons. Satan forms things in your life so Satan can accuse you of something and say that's why God is doing this to you. And yet I hear that over and over again from other people in the government. They say, because they're not afraid of God. Well, when you're possessed, and quite frankly, that person's been possessed and has said some things and done some things that probably they shouldn't have. So again, I give them that out. But the Bible tells us, how shall they know even about Jesus, let be God, if they're not told about him? And so, well, I've tried to tell them. Well, how did you tell them? Did you offend them? Did you heal them? And if you can't heal them, did you bring a healer to heal them? We tend to think that megachurch is an indication of some holiness. Now, I don't have a problem with a megachurch, but I have a problem with such shenanigan. So what's happening in my body is my left side is relaxing and my right is like almost completely stiff, but it's coming from that back muscle. So it's a very awkward thing, and it's causing a lot of other issues. So the quicker it gets released, the better it's going to be. Now that left does get stiff, so it's going to need it shot too, and then I'll have to get to some physical therapy and some chiropractor. But I would not be in this if the government would just let me be. Now, you know what they're doing? It's a psychological operation, and I've seen it in history where people were most likely victims of that and became criminals. Maybe the government employees involved would just kind of like look at it like, oops, don't say anything, oops. But there's somebody that designed it, somebody that's pulling the strings that knows exactly what they're doing to harm the U.S. citizen. Now, they are also part of it. They are harming somebody and feel good about a bad thing. Again, if you bring a demon to possess somebody, then that demon's going to replicate that possession. But what you'll find today is they're bringing hordes of demons, legions of demons. That's why COVID-19 is here. It's a legion of demons. Amarillo's mind is so much different. Now, there are people that do have trouble here. But that Tyler, Texas, and that Oklahoma is owned by Satan. I don't care how many churches they have. It's owned by Satan. Lock, stock, and barrel. Or they wouldn't have been able to do this to me. Their goal was suicide. There's no doubt that law enforcement, federal, state, and local, within Tyler, Texas, is obsessed with causing suicide in the life of their victims. Remember, they're protecting you, but on the side, there's a dirty, dirty, criminal, satanic secret. They're using that CIA technology to murder members of the public for their own demonic and satanic joy and criminal gain at times. And there's a private sector out there doing it. And they'll say, well, we don't see them. You don't want to see them. And like I said, it could be any organization in the world. Any organization in the world. It doesn't matter how holy, how purified and sanctified, how governmentified that it is. I told you before that they're using private sector entities, and I said you can go to any of the private sector entities that help us investigate crime, but they're using those to circumvent law. But what they're not telling you is that they're using CIA techniques from those entities to cause the person to at least appear to be a criminal. That be if they could be a criminal. But within that, they're also killing the person. They're psychotic, man. You got to stop them. I mean, you may have a good life here. See, the illusion is when you're a rich man or a rich person or a well person and you don't think about it, your life here is limited. It's a satanic trick to make you look at people that are quote-unquote losers. And just because maybe the president has used some of that terminology, it doesn't mean that I'm pointing at him. It doesn't mean that it applies to him. It applies to who it applies to. Why do I say that? Because the CIA is here today, the FBI is here today, the DHS is here today to make you think that I am. Now, if Obama was president, it would be about Obama. If you like Obama, then it would be about something Democrat. If it was you like a Republican, it's about something Republican. This is what they're doing to you. That's what they're doing to your mind. God's telling me that I'm going to speak as long, as hard as I can for the rest of my life, no matter what they do to me. It's over, all of you. Law enforcement is being killed on the street because they're doing exactly what I say they're doing and allowing what I say they're allowing. It's something very difficult for you maybe to fathom, to accept. But God doesn't even support the death penalty in the New Testament. Doesn't even support prisons. Jesus would be considered a liberal today. But yet I'm not telling you that Democrats are liberals. I've already told you they're not liberals. They're socialists. There's a difference. Liberals are libertarians. Jesus was a libertarian. Now, do I think we need a little more government control today? Probably so. But Jesus was a libertarian. A lot of libertarians, and I'm not telling you they should be a sovereign citizen or anything like that, but a lot of libertarians believe that there should be limited criminal prosecution. And we probably should limit. I've said before that these crimes of the mind that we prosecute for, where somebody maybe was a little negligent, sometimes it's just over the line. I mean, people, if you understand spirituality, you understand how they're blinded and caused not to see things. Versus not wanting to see things. Even if they tell you that they didn't want to see it. I just stepped on a stone. It kind of tingled my feet funny. So again, there's a lot of issue in the world. I don't know if I'll heal of this. This is not just normal old age. It's what the deep state's been doing to me for years. Hindsight is 20/20, and when these things happen, it usually opens up. Because what's happened all these years, oh, he's okay, he's not, nothing's happening. I mean, come on. And then all of a sudden it happened. Miraculously, I said, they're trying to disable me, and I couldn't see how they were planning to do it, but obviously they did, and were. Not because I said it, because that's what they were doing. And they watched me till the last day I left. And cursed me. And it was an immense demon that they are. It's the only reason your country's suffering. It's the only reason COVID-19's here. It's the only reason children are raped in the streets. And they think it's great because they get to come along and say, you're an N-word person, or you're this, or you're that. And in the end, put a bunch of people to death. It's funny that when you look at what's going on in the world and who we consider lesser and greater, it doesn't jive with what a lot of people say, but yet they still agree to it. In other words, it's this split personality mind that the government and the people affiliated with it have developed. We hate Islamic people, but if you were to look at that post that I posted, and maybe I'll post it again if I can find it, the person that most emulated Jesus was an Islamic person. God's reminding me I have to speak on something. So I stopped and thought for a second. However, that person, let me grab that thought, make sure I keep it. They took it. But that person, the Islamic person, and God says, see, Al, it's more important that you speak about this than that other thought for now. Forgave the person that killed his son. However, did it in the most Christ-like fashion, or Christian fashion, should we say, which is generally Christ-like. That's the point of becoming Christian, supposedly. They use psychological torture to stop me from moving into the churches and trying to be with the church. Still trying it. Because once they wire you for that, then, it's triggered kind of easy. And they could do things like stopping communication. They could do that spiritually and physically. Making people afraid to communicate. But I'll tell you, they've been in the middle of my church since the middle of the 90s. Now, if you're not going to let a citizen go to church, you're not going to let a citizen do much. Now, they'll say, well, we had to disrupt it. They were all in danger. That's how bad this guy is. Live from the pits of hell, every last one of them, live from the pits of hell. That's the world we're living in. A world run by liars from the pits of hell. I'm trying to figure out the mental focus of all of it that I'm experiencing. What's happening is I'm blocking. All my memories are starting to come up, and I'm able to connect all the dots. And God says that's what God wants. So it can be judged, I can witness it, and God can judge it. Now they're throwing fear at me. They're still trying to possess me. One of the things they're doing is cursing me out of living here. So the hardest thing for me to do for an extended period of time is to stay in my room. They're trying to make it a miserable place. The reverse was done in Tyler, Texas, where it was miserable to come outside, but comfortable to stay inside. And I never should have stayed there. I tried getting out of there. Somebody was physically manipulating things. There's no doubt. But the things I was trying to do, such as buy a car, a vehicle, was being minded and blocked, and I just couldn't get anywhere. Like I said, the demons and devils and antichrists and witches and sorcerers there were horrific. Oh, it's horrific, I'll tell you that. Now, it's my hope that the chiropractor will be able to heal this, along with the other modalities. But stay tuned. If I don't heal this, God has plenty more for all of you. You could have controlled them any point along the way. It's not that difficult, and I know at times they were. But this idea where it's a different officer or a different member of the public, that don't work. You're all a criminal conspiracy. Running criminal enterprise in community after community after community after community. Now, my friend believes Jesus is going to come back in the sky sometime soon. I've already seen Jesus spiritually. Seen him for decades. But the more I speak on it, the more they try to block it. Which in itself, again, think what's going on. Your government is blocking people from seeing Jesus. And it doesn't mean it's a liberal. It could be a church member. And as God says to me in my mind, most likely is what they want me to say. What God said it is. Or has been at times. So I mean, what are you really doing? You're constructing a church that involves selecting who the church members are and who they're not. And it wasn't for Paul, you could pull off a lot more of it, but then again, Paul said some things that empowered you to pull it off, if you don't really study what Paul said as he bracketed the behavior. And then we have the Old Testament. And we go to the Old Testament, a lot of people only pick and choose where it empowers them to harm people. The Old Testament tells you that there are victims of the deep state. Everyday victims. And that God favors those people over the deep state. So again, the Bible will tell you to obey your government. And I'm not telling you to disobey your government. But it also tells you when government has gone in the wrong direction. Now we're talking about decades of abuse and torture. They keep saying that I had my choices. I had no choices. I was psychologically operated, manipulated, which includes psychological torture. If you go in one direction, the government will torture you. If you go in a direction to go to church, if you go in a direction to stay healthy in a gym, if you go in a direction to get massage therapy, if you go in a direction to get chiro. Even if I got massage therapy, it wasn't at the level that I was getting, and it wasn't continuous like it would have been. So again, but he did get some. He just this, he just that. He just. So that level playing field doesn't exist. And the president, for all the good he's doing, is not really interested in taking that on. No matter what he says to defend himself, his family, and all the others that were caught up in Russiagate. I mean, I'm beside myself. You're not going to convince me one iota that we don't need to change our healthcare system. You can blame Obama all you like. I got some pretty darn good insurance and should have received a little better care. I still don't think it should be Obamacare. That's a big one. It shouldn't have been Obamacare. It needs to be redesigned. Uh-oh, somebody's alarm went off. Somebody's panic mode went off. Actually, God allowed that because God wanted me to stop it there and then start it again. But it's funny because when that went off, this vehicle next to me didn't go off, but the owner was hitting the button to make sure it wasn't his vehicle. So I'm out here in the cool air, the sun's coming out. Both the sun and the cool air feels so good. I sure hope I heal here in Amarillo. I mean, I feel okay. I feel better than I did in Tyler. There's no doubt about that. No doubt. Now the deep state's in the mind around me. And it can last 3 to 6 months. My chiropractors are confident. I have to meet my pain management people and see if I can help them understand. But it's just strange because I spoke to 2 doctors that totally believe what I'm saying. One at the ER over here, which is great because I found out this. So they take Medicare now at the freestanding emergency rooms, and that's been since May, which would have made it easier for me. But they told me, the lady at Exceptional ER told me, if you have Medicare and another insurance, we're not going to bill you. We're just going to take your insurance, your secondary, and bill them. And whatever that is, that is. That's what she told me. She says, I'm the something or other, I forget what her title was, for both the location in Amarillo and the location in Tyler you're speaking about. So, she has the authority to say that. These are the things that I couldn't get to when I was in Tyler, Texas, because the Exceptional ER was right across from where I lived. If I wanted to go to the ER, I'd have to go way down on Broadway. Again, I was blinded and tortured while I was in Tyler, Texas. And that was in cahoots with Oklahoma, what they did there. Now, the strange thing is, I almost stopped in Amarillo on the way out of Santa Fe. I kind of wish that thought would have been stronger, and I just said, forget it, I'm staying here. That's another thing they do. They're able to manipulate your mind so you end up in the place that would not be well for you. I mean, they work for Satan. They work for Satan. What else can be said? What else needs to be said? One nation under God is nice to say, and you know what? Atheists aren't bad people unless they're bad people. But there's none good, no, not one. But maybe I should cast the first stone. Because we all do, including me. The Bible tells me this. We all cause strife. That's an abomination before the Lord our God. But why is that there? Why did the law come? Why did Paul say the law is there? To prove that none of us are lawful. The more you believe in the law and the fleshly pursuit of the law, the less likely that will ever come out of anything. This is where we are. Again, I told you God really likes me. I don't know why, I'm just a sinner. But I tell God, when God tells, when the thing comes up, and there's just so much spiritual things that happen around me. I don't tell you everything, but I feel this immense cry, and I said, what's that? And I said, it's God, Larry. See, there's advanced concepts that none of you are allowing to happen because greater works can't exist because you don't believe it's a greater work. Every person we hurt in any way, we hurt God. God is inside each living being. God is inside each living being. You can't live without God inside you. There is nothing but God that can sustain life, and that's a continual thing. If God were to take his hand off of you today, you'd be dead. And you know, that atheist that ran as the GOP person and is a transsexual, and what else? Oh no, it's a Satanist, transsexual. Said there's something wrong with the system. And you ran as a Republican sheriff.